In a move that stunned foreign policy establishment across the globe, President Donald Trump initiated a direct and unscheduled telephone conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin, a communication that senior administration officials are heralding as a masterclass in pragmatic diplomacy that successfully averted a sophisticated geopolitical ambush. The call, which lasted just over an hour, was characterized by the White House as frank, productive, and entirely focused on American interests, but sources familiar with the Kremlin's readout describe a tense and circuitous negotiation where both leaders sought to gain the upper hand. The primary objective from the American perspective, as articulated by Secretary of State Marco Rubio in a subsequent press briefing, was to establish a new transactional dialogue with Moscow while simultaneously dismantling a perceived trap set by European allies and elements within the previous U.S. administration to lock President Trump into a public meeting under unfavorable prearranged conditions. This high-stakes diplomatic engagement demonstrates the new administration's ruthless commitment to a realpolitik approach, early discarding what it views as the failed moralizing and strategic blunders of its predecessors. The concept of the meeting trap, as explained by a senior National Security Council official speaking on conditions of anonymity, was a multifaceted strategy designed by European capitals in coordination with certain Washington holdovers. The plan, intelligence on which was reportedly refined by Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, was to pressure President Trump into an early, highly publicized summit with President Putin, ideally on neutral ground like Geneva or Vienna. The intended agenda for this summit, crafted primarily by French and German diplomats, would have been narrowly focused on achieving an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine based on the current front lines, effectively freezing the conflict and cementing Russia's territorial gains. European leaders believe that by forcing Trump into a high-profile meeting, the immense pressure of the global spotlight would compel him to sign onto a prepackaged agreement that they had developed, an agreement that would have been portrayed as a peace deal, but which the Trump team viewed as a ratification of Russian conquest and a betrayal of American leverage. The threat was not merely diplomatic, but also political, designed to box the new American president into a policy crafted by Brussels before his own team could fully formulate and execute its own strategy. President Trump's call, therefore, was a preemptive strike designed to seize control of the narrative and the diplomatic process. He did not request the call through normal diplomatic channels. Instead, having it placed abruptly through a secure line established between the White House and the Kremlin during the previous administration. This bypassed the extensive preparatory work typically undertaken by teams of diplomats, depriving the European allies of any forewarning or ability to influence the agenda. According to officials, Trump opened the conversation by dismissing the past 4 years of hostility, stating that he was not beholden to the policies of the failed Biden regime and was interested only in outcomes that served the United States. He immediately pivoted to the proposed summit, telling Putin directly that he would not be attending any setup organized by the French, a clear reference to President Macron's public lobbying for a quick meeting. Trump stated that any future face-to-face discussion would occur only after low-level talks had made significant progress and, critically, only on his terms and his schedule, utterly rejecting the European table. The conversation then delved into the substance of the Ukraine conflict, with President Trump articulating a position that diverged radically from the previous American stance. He reportedly did not focus on condemning the invasion or reiterating support for Ukrainian sovereignty. Instead, he framed the issue as a catastrophic failure of American leadership under President Biden, which had allowed a manageable regional dispute to escalate into a global economic and security crisis. He expressed a desire to end the conflict swiftly, but made it clear that his primary concern was not the restoration of Ukraine's 1991 or 2013 borders, but rather the prevention of a broader war and the securing of tangible concessions for the United States. He listed these potential concessions as including a new comprehensive nuclear arm reduction treaty, Russian cooperation in isolating Iran and its nuclear program, and guarantees on the free flow of Russian energy resources to global markets to stabilize prices. In this framing, the resolution of the Ukraine war became a bargaining chip to be used in a much larger deal addressing what Trump sees as core American strategic interests, a notion that fundamentally alters the Western calculus for the conflict. President Putin's response, according to the source, was initially cautious and probing. He welcomed the change in tone from Washington and expressed his own desire for a normalized relationship. But he tested Trump's resolve by reiterating Russia's long-stated maximalist goals, including the recognition of Crimea as Russian, the independence of the Donbass, and the demilitarization and denazifications of the Ukraine states. This was the pivotal moment of the call. Rather than engaging on these points or rejecting them outright, which would have fallen into a familiar rhetorical trap, President Trump employed a dismissive business-centric negotiation tactic. He is said to have brushed aside the historical and ideological justifications, telling Putin that everyone already knows what territory they currently hold and that relitigating the past was a waste of time. He focused the discussion relentlessly on the future, stating that the current situation on the ground was a fact and that the conversation should be about what each leader was prepared to do to change it to their advantage. This approach, while avoiding any explicit endorsement of Russia's claim, effectively took them off the table as obstacles to negotiation, treating them as a given rather than a point of contention. It was a stark departure from years of Western policy that insisted any talks must begin with the principle of restoring Ukraine's territorial integrity. The call concluded with an agreement for Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov to meet within the week at an undisclosed location in a third country. This working-level meeting is tasked with exploring the contours of a potential broader negotiation, essentially acting as a probe to see if a grand bargain is possible. Crucially, no date was set for a Trump-Putin summit, dismantling the European plan for an immediate, high-stake confrontation. The White House declared the call a resounding success, with press secretary stating it had broken the logjam of stealth thinking and opened a new channel solely focused on American interests. The Kremlin statement was more reserved but positive, noting the constructive and business-like atmosphere and agreeing on the need for a new dialogue. In a single conversation, President Trump reframed the entire conflict, sidelined European allies from the central diplomatic process, and placed the prospect of a settlement squarely within a bilateral U.S.-Russia framework where American leverage, in the administration's view, is greatest. The trap was not just avoided, it was completely dismantled, leaving European leaders scrambling to understand their new, diminished role in a process they once sought to control. Many of my listeners, like 70%, haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, and so many of you don't even know that you have subscribed, and that is actually what makes the show going. It's almost like you're making a donation to the show, so that's why I ask again and again, because it enables us to grow and grow and grow. And we're going for the long haul here. And listen, if this is your first time listening to World Global Conflict, you don't have to subscribe. You guys, your first ones on me. But if you have watched this show before, it's like you are a freeloader now. So all I would ask you is, if you have seen this show before and you like it, help me, help my team here. Hit that subscribe and like button now, and we will continue to build this show for you. That I swear. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. That's all for me for today. I will see you soon. Bye for now.